just to see if a few more people come in, and then I'll reduce the amount of time.
Thank you.
We can hear you in Nairobi, Fergus, loud and clear. People are starting to get in.
Very good. So they're still arriving in Nairobi. Of course, it's before 9 for you, I guess.
Yeah.
shirts. But I wasn't making a mistake because I'm here to connect between Partner Day and Science Week. And if I had a colorful backtik shirt, you wouldn't be able to see the difference between these two. And I must admit, the first thing I noticed is that the Partner Day is much more colorful than Science Day. And it was certainly a very, very vibrant session this morning, and I'll say a few words about it. But even if I'm not wearing a batik shirt, I am going to start with a limerick, because this appears to be the way that things are done. And I wanted to use a limerick, which you're all probably very familiar with, that says something about how relationships may change as partnerships develop. And this is a British limerick rather than an Indonesian one, but it does contain a tiger, so it's got some relevance. There was a young lady of Niger who smiled as she rode on a tiger. They returned from the ride with the lady inside and the smile on the face of the tiger. So that just shows how relationships can start in a partnership in one way and end up quite different. But one of the quite exciting things from the partners who were talking this morning was just how much of the CIFOR-ICRAF products in terms of green growth plans and the collaboration that's gone on have become internalized in the work. And Regina there, I see smiling from South Sumatra, who was pointing out that the importance is that they're actually being actioned, things are happening, they're part of regional plans and making a difference on the ground in terms of implementation. Now, we started this morning with the vice rector from the Agricultural University here in Bogor, and absolute music to the ears of CIFOR-ICRAF scientists, because what he was talking about in terms of the interrelated nature of global challenges, of broken food systems, food security, the complexity of climate change, biodiversity loss, all requiring a transformation of food systems, which he linked to the digitization of agriculture, which has been critical in the United Nations Food Systems Summit dialogues going on here in Indonesia as well as other places in the world. And he pointed to the importance of geospatial and diversity science, and gave us an insight into collaborations on climate change and sustainability, circular economy, and One Health, right around the world, with universities from Europe and North America through to Japan. And that global network is something that CIFOR-ICRAF is proud to be part of and to work together with. And I think it's very significant that within CIFOR-ICRAF, the Indonesia country program has often been leading the science globally. So there are many aspects of our work as an international organization that have really been come from a crucible of innovation happening here in Indonesia. I remember very soon after starting as a member of staff with what was then ICRAF in Nairobi, one of the first things that happened was we brought a group of cacao or cocoa scientists from Côte d'Ivoire to Sulawesi, This was through the Mars Vision for Change program, so connecting the private sector. And they were taking the grafting techniques developed here in Indonesia and using them in West Africa in order to rejuvenate cocoa. The critical work on payments for environmental services has been very much pioneered in this part of the world. When I first looked up this morning, I saw Gede Wabawa, and there was a huge amount of work on rubber research, which was leading in terms of rubber agroforestry for ICRAF 15, 20 years ago. So I think the fact that Indonesia has been a really important part of the innovation story is really huge for us. But I was also struck by the ambition of what is going on here. So we're always talking about the balance between economic development and nature. And in fact, the keynote presentation that we had to start our Science Week on Monday from the Donut Economics Action Lab was all about trying to balance economic development and not overshooting planetary boundaries. But I was staggered by the ambition of having to try to reconcile 7% economic growth and 29% reduction in greenhouse gas emissions. So that type of challenge is really something that we need to step up to, and it's fantastic to see the progress that is being made in that way. And I was very excited that when the partners were talking about their closing messages, it's really encouraging that they wanted continued collaboration with CIFOR-ICRAF. That's really good news. It means that we're as much at the start of a new era as we are celebrating what has already happened over the last decade. And I was also struck by the fact that research was seen as important, the scientific basis for taking things forward was seen as important, but also capacity development. And I think with Cora joining here in the headquarters in CIFOR-ICRAF, that's going to be an important thing to take forward, alongside governance options based on science that are up to dealing with the really critical problems of balance and green growth going forwards. So with those words, and without further ado, I think I've got us almost back on time. Let me hand back to the mistress of ceremonies.
Thank you very much, Fergus. Our next session will highlight efforts to restore the landscape